right, good morning. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Thank you very much, everyone, for taking your time on this weekend on a beautiful Saturday morning. This YPC webinar, as you might be aware, generally how we are doing it is through an alumni in collaboration with an alumni. So today's webinar is in collaboration with Liaquat Alumni. I'm also from Liaquat, and all the panelists here are from Liaquat. So I'll just start introducing the panelists. So today's topic is, of course, you all know, this is, we'll talk about what things that you can make to make your CV stronger for ERAS application. I'm sure you guys are already working on it, but it'll just give you a little bit of perspective, generally from program director's perspective, from faculty, postdoc research fellow, and so on and so forth. In the panelists, we have Dr. Numan Ashraf. I'm sure you all know him very well. He's the program director of psych at an addiction medicine fellowship and also associate professor of clinical psychiatry. Then I have Dr. Aliza Maiman. She's an instructor in internal medicine and division of nephrology at St. Louis University. Dr. Alvina Batul, she was a postdoc research fellow at Cleveland Clinic, and I'm very happy that she is going in as an incoming PGY1 in internal medicine at Cleveland Clinic. Omar Tariq, you all know him very well, and he is also helping us with all the technical things that we always need. So thank you very much, all the panelists. So what we'll do is what we have always done in these webinars. We will have all the speakers talk for a little bit, give their perspective, and then we'll try to keep most of the time interactive. And I have Gulrez also here in the audience, so I'll make him a panelist also, so he can pitch in if he would like. I don't know if there's a limit to the panelists that we can make. Gulrez, I have made you a panelist. I don't know if you can see that or not, but I don't see you among the panelists anymore. So, but we'll take your comment probably later on. So what we'll do is we'll go to each of our panelists and kind of have them give their kind of a brief overview of what they think they would like in a candidate as a program director's perspective, from faculty point of view, when we are reviewing the CVs or personal statement, what things that we focus on. And then Almina can also share her perspective, how did she get into research, how that helped her, getting into such prestigious program. And then later on, of course, we will, you can raise your hands. You have, questions now, you can type it in the chat or QA, and then we'll go questions. We'll take the questions from the audience later on, whoever has raised their hand first, and then we can also read the questions from the chat. I'll start with Noman. Please go ahead and tell us what would you see as a program director in any candidate in their CV when you're reviewing the applications.
Okay, well, good morning, everyone. Thanks, Dr. Khurram, for the introduction. So when I would review the CV, I think the most important thing these days, we've talked about it a lot earlier as well in our webinars as well, and talking to other program directors. And I think also my personal opinion, and the reason behind it is because we've been getting so many applications, and there are very competitive candidates coming from all over. So the most important thing is your CV has to have a focus in one specialty. So what I mean by that is, if I see a CV where somebody has done rotations in surgery, radiology, internal medicine, and then suppose I'm a psychiatry PD and they have psychiatry as well, then it's sort of a hodgepodge. It's a mix sort of experience they have, as opposed to someone who applies to me where they have majority of psychiatry rotations. They have at least 2 solid letter of recommendations from good psychiatrists who are in academics. And then they have done some research work in psychiatry, and also maybe some volunteer work, or they run their health. That shows me this person has a genuine interest in psychiatry. So that will separate that CV from the rest of, say, 3,000 CVs that you have in front of you. And then you're going to look at that. So I think the most important thing for you guys, if in terms of giving you advice on how to go about it, since this webinar is what to do between now and then the next match, most important thing would be join one of these mentorship platforms like Appna YPC. find a mentor and have them review your CV. And what I said is that tell them to give you the opinion on whether this CV is focused or not. And if it's not focused, then find opportunities to can align your CV with you have some things that your CV can speak about that you are interested in that specialty and shows your passion towards it. And then of course after that do the mock prep, because after that the issue is once you have the interview, then whether you're able to have good communication skills and talk about your strengths or not. So that's the other important process for you to go through. But that's how I review the CV. I try to see what's in there uh, relevant to my field, and then it becomes a quality of experience. That's the second question. How was your experience, whether it was elective, it was externship, or it was observership, then the quality of your letter of recommendation, and what else you have done, and the impact of that, whether it was translated into some sort of research, poster, presentation or not.
Perfect. Very good start. Thank you very much. I completely agree. I think those days are gone. I guess like maybe a few years ago, people used to have like multiple different things in their CV, and then that was kind of sometimes it was okay, maybe for some programs. But I guess those days are gone, and this just doesn't happen anymore. And it has to be very specialty focused. Even these days, just about last week, I got many requests, like someone who is requested for internal medicine observership, and now they're also wanting the psych observership or things like that. And I told them similarly, they're looking for internal medicine and then they're looking for pediatrics. Now they just don't go together. They're completely different specialties. So and I honestly believe that it's a waste of our resources also, and that's why I told them also that just through YPC platform we cannot just arrange you two completely different rotations. I mean, you have to pick one. It's your choice. You do whatever you want. But I mean, we, from a preceptors and mentors point of view, we feel strongly that you have to have a very focused CV. So great point. Thank you, Doman. Moving on to Dr. Aliza. Aliza, I'm sure you're in the faculty and you're reviewing, the candidates for residency and fellowships and all that. Can you talk a little bit about personal statement if you are, how important personal statement is, and what are the things that you would like to see in anyone's personal statement?
Thank you. Absolutely. I think that's a great initiative. So thank you for doing that for our alumni. And I think it's I next to Dr. Naman that you should be focused. But when it comes to even before CV, the personal statement, I believe whatever CVs or applications that I've reviewed in the last year for residency and for fellowship, I think the first thing, even before seeing the CV, is the email or the personal letter that we get. So reading that, I would want to see if I want to spend my time going in that CV in detail or not. So a lot of people kind of write about themselves in the CV, but they do not explain what they have done. So your personal statement should be what you have done and why your CV should be considered to have, to be looked compared to the other person. So I think your opening statement of your personal statement, that's really, really important. It should not be very long. A lot of emails or personal statements that I've seen are too long about their childhood experiences and other things. That's great too, but we want to know what is your focus, what you have done, like Dr. Naman said, your focus, your consistency in that particular thing, and why you should stand out than others. So I think one thing I would want to say is that maybe by providing them a template or an example by our YPC, forum, I don't know if that's been done before or not, like an example of somebody like me or Dr. Naman or someone, like a template that, don't copy paste it, but just look at it and see how that personal statement is written, and then try to add your things that you have done in that format. And that's the way. And again, your grammatical mistakes and your spelling mistakes are again really important, because if you're writing that, you have so much research you've published and you have grammatical errors and spelling mistakes in your email and your personal statement, it's not very formal. You forget to put a period or put a next paragraph. That also kind of, as an academician, I can see that, okay, this person is not a good writer because he's saying that he's written papers, but those things are also critical really small, but really make a big impact, especially if you're applying to a university program or stuff like that. And again, the CV, I 100% say that your CV should be focused. It should never be haphazard. The CVs that I've screened recently for our fellowship program, a lot of things have been, haphazard. Like your one thing is written, it's not chronologically arranged. So focusing on, or maybe again, providing them a template that how a CV should look like. And again, putting your publications or research, you're not indexing it properly as it is in the PubMed. That's again a big red flag that you've done research, but you're not indexing or not putting your research in the manner that it should be, or in a certain format that it should be. So I think those are my few suggestions that I would want to add here.
Yeah, great input. Thank you, Anita. Yes, I think providing template and CV. So we'll have our next webinar, I think in July, will be about CV writing and CV guidance, and we have consistently done that. And later on, we'll also do a webinar on personal statement. I think that's also a very important topic. So, we can provide you some input. And I don't know, we'll see if we can do some breakout sessions and kind of do more of a workshop setting. But that's in the plan. So just stay tuned, guys, for next month about those CV and personal statement webinars. So we all know, I'm sure that these days when the competition is becoming very strong. For in any internal medicine program, there's about 8 to 10,000 applications in a program. So and the average score nowadays being 250. And pretty much most of the applicants, you would know that they have so-called the US clinical experience and observership. Still, I mean, they kind of are considered among that. So although technically it's not US clinical experience, but everyone knows that in the programs that these are the only things that you can get once you graduate. So it's still okay. So the average candidate, we believe, has about 250 scores. They have 3 to 6 months of US clinical experience. Most of them, they have done something from their home country, at least the house job or internship year, and someone has even done residency. So that's a big additional point in your CV if you have done or started or completed your home country residency. And I'm also seeing very common these days that many applicants, I would not say majority, but at least the good chunk of applicants will have some research, some publications. And like Noman mentioned earlier on, so it has to be just a holistic CV that you literally have everything in your CV. And so people, I mean, you can say, how can we do all that? I mean, yes, you have to plan very early on. So, if you're getting into this path, you have to plan very early on in third year. And I think our next panelist, Alvina, will share her, kind of perspective. And if I recall correctly, she was able to get her postdoc research fellowship while as a medical student, and that too a paid research. So meaning that she was very focused early on during her medical school, and she published herself enough that she ended up getting a postdoc. So moving on, I'll go to Alvina and just share, Alvina, your thoughts about how research is important. Why? How did you get into it? And how did it help you getting into a program like Cleveland Clinic?
Thank you, Dr. Khurram. Thank you for having me here. Also, it's nice to give me, as a young candidate, the opportunity to talk about my personal experience. Since I recently applied to the cycle, I can share a little bit insight about what I thought helped me and what I was actually thinking is going to help me. Over here, we have our seniors, and you guys know better than me, but I think going through the cycle kind of refreshes the current situation. For example, I used to think the high scores, a lot of research, I have to publish as much as I can, have a great extracurricular activities, community service activities that's going to help me. But going into the cycle, I realized there are a candidate should fill all the boxes, but it's not excessive amount of research that's going to help you or excessive number of extracurricular activities. You should basically have a check mark. So you should cover all your bases, good scores, nothing below 240. So you can bypass filter for most of the top programs, a good number of publications, some form of community service activities, good communication skills. Also how you talk and carry yourself during the interviews, that's very important. Having the US clinical experience is very important. Also research experience, if you can get that, because programs, I think they used to say that connection is really important. I would agree with that. But for me personally, I think having that a 2-year postdoc in the US really helped me because people knew my program. Everybody knew about Cleveland Clinics when I was interviewing with different programs. So they would recognize that this person is coming from that institute, even if they don't know your home medical school. So that really helped me to get a postdoc experience, as Dr. Khurram mentioned, and we talked about that in our previous seminar. It's really important that you build some form of research experience during medical school. Right after medical school, getting a postdoc, which is a paid position, is very difficult because you do not have anything in your CV to show that you can publish here, you can work independently. And people like my PI at Cleveland Clinic, they're very busy. They don't have time to babysit you. They're seeing a lot of patients every day. They have big labs. So they want somebody who already know ABCs of research and conduct themselves independently. So I think Dr. Benifsha, I talked about her. She had an excellent during my time research course within LUMS. So that really helped me. I would suggest if we have juniors from second year, third year, even final year students, if they can start finding a mentor within LUMS. And we have a lot of resources. We have EndNote, we have SPSS if you want to do learn analysis. That really helps. So I did learn all those things during medical school and published, and went to Hopkins to do some rotations, met another PI. I think I just have been lucky. I found Dr. Benifsha early on, then I found a great mentor at Hopkins as a medical student during electives. They taught me about research. I kept doing research, and having some number of publications got helped me get this paid postdoc at the Cleveland Clinic. Also, the experience at the Johns Hopkins was really helpful. So for those who say we don't have resources or LUMS doesn't provide us a lot of resources, I would say you can also utilize YouTube. Self-learning is a great tool. There are a lot of courses on the Coursera. So it's not about, waiting for somebody to save us. It's just going out there and trying to figure out how we can learn by ourselves. So that's really important. So I think if you want to do what I did, get a research position and then apply, that's a great way to get into US Match. And I think people who follow that track and they're not old graduate, they're within the 5-year limit, they all end up matching. I know a lot of friends, and I think everybody matched. And for people who are coming right out of medical school and applying for match, I think that's a good way to save time as well, especially if you are checking all the boxes. You have rotations in the US, you have some type of research, good quality research, not a paper in Curious, which you published with a bunch of peers, and you don't know what you exactly wrote. Good quality research, also good communication skill, and then personality helps a lot. So program wants to know if you are a good team player, you're humble, down to earth, easy to work with, a nice person to talk to. So all those things really help. Also, I think I have some people, my juniors apply to the postdoc position at Cleveland Clinic. So I helped a few people get interviews, but you have to answer really specifically. So if you want to come to the US, you have to talk about why research interests you if you're talking about a postdoc position. And if you're in a residency interview, you should answer like program focused. Like Dr. Ashraf mentioned, your CV should be very goal oriented, which specialty you're applying to, why did you pick that specific programs. Another thing which I thought was really interesting in my journey, so I thought if I check all these boxes, programs are gonna like me, but you're not a good candidate for all the programs. Community programs look for a different type of candidate versus academic programs or big institutes. For community programs, you need to see, how you fit in their category. They don't exactly need a lot of research. If they're going to see 40 publication in your CV, it might be a bit of red flag for them. And like I have some program, they asked me, why do you want to interview, and why did you choose our program? So that was a very tricky situation. So you have to see how exactly your CV aligns with that particular program. So the chance of your match in that program would be really high. I think connections help too. If you have somebody who can vouch for you, that is helpful. For me, I think just the presence in the US and doing the postdoc really helped me, and being able to talk to the people during the interview and talk about that I'm physically located here and doing this and that. So that really helped me. Another thing last year really helped was Signal. So 70 to 80% of the interviews I got was from the region that I selected. So I take a good use of the signals. I think they're increasing it from last year, this year. So I got a lot of interviews from the places I signaled. So make sure your application aligned with the places you want to signal, and pick your top programs, but also pick your safe programs. So if you don't end up there, you always have a safe program. And the region, if you're located in a particular region, I would say ideally pick that region. Because for me, like 70% interviews I got from different Ohio programs because I was located over here. I think that's pretty much it. If Dr. Khurram wants to talk about anything else or wants me to add anything on another aspect of application process, I would be happy to.
Great input, Alvina. Thank you very much. So yeah, I mean, like you said, you guys will be the best judge of yourself, what you guys are capable of. If research interests you, this is path you want to go, and that's how you would like to go. And then, like she said, go on doing some research while in medical school, and then later on into. But I'll also tell you, like she said, that if you're focusing on, like, I mean, everyone doesn't want to be an academician. I never wanted to be an academician. I didn't want to go into an academic program. So I just did a certain amount of publications, which just to like, most of people said just to have a check mark. So that's me, but everyone is different, right? So the community programs will not give you an interview if you have 30 plus publication. That is guaranteed, right? Because they'll be scared. I mean, because this is not the best fit for you. So you just assess yourself where you fit best and what works best for you, and then build your CV accordingly into that. And not only lumps. I think I'm probably this happens pretty much in every medical school. I'm sure there are some resources in whichever medical schools you are. And to this day, I think if someone comes down to me that I did not have any resources, I did not know about this thing. Now this is totally on you. In this era, there's no way for anyone not to find the resources or to connect to people. And but like everyone else mentioned, and Aliza mentioned also, communication is the key. I mean, if you're gonna text me, send me a text, which I get literally every single day. Hey Kuram, hey doc, and this and that, and send me like 17 texts and not a single text explaining who you are, telling me about yourself, I'll reply to you. But if you be kind of try to look cool, or sometimes you just don't know. And if you don't know, again, that's on you. How hard is it for you to try to find out what is the right way to send a email or to send a text or something? So that's just the beginning of how you get to start building your communication and all that. Omar, you want to pitch in?
Sure. Thank you, Sadiq bhai. So just a quick pointer. So we are at the end of June, and for those who will be applying for Match, you'll be doing that in a month or a couple of months. So just have a holistic approach to your CV. I'll say, look at your CV. Look at your scores, look at your personal statement, look at your CV, and look at what's missing. I will tell you, if you have long time since graduation, if you have low score, or if you're going into a competitive field, then doing long-term research really helps. But let's say I have come across applicants who have 10 plus publications, but they don't have any observerships, any clinical experience, no electives, no externships. For those people, focus on what's missing. Do the externships in these couple of months. Then I have come across people who have had 8 months of observerships, multiple letters, but they didn't have any research. So then in that case, what's missing is your research, right? So fill that area, have a case report at least, or a little bit. So having a holistic approach, look at what's missing. Is your CV not stellar? Is your personal statement not stellar? And after doing all this, I come across candidates who get 20 plus interviews, but they still don't match. And most of the times the reason is that they didn't have good interview skills. So again, like I said, we're looking at a combination of 5 things: scores. Right now, step 1 is pass fail, so we're only looking at step 2 CK. If you haven't taken step 3, take that step 3 within the next couple of months. If you don't have letters, try to get good letters. If you don't have clinical experience, try to get that. You can't have one approach fit all, right? If you don't have any research experience, try to do that. If you have low scores, long-term research with publications is going to somehow compensate for it. If you're an older graduate, same thing, long-term research with publications can supplement for that. So critically look at your CV, or have somebody else look at it and see what's missing, and then try to fill that missing blank. Thank you.
Perfect. Great. Yeah. I think very important point here, again, the bottom line is holistic CV. I remember pretty much every year I come across some candidate. I remember one from 2 years ago who worked in Cornell or something very big institution, and all he or she had is just like 2 to 3 years of that research fellowship and multiple publications. And I asked him how many letters you have. In 3 years in US, he only had like one letter of recommendation from his preceptor. I mean, so that there right there is a red flag, right? So you have to have your CV very holistic. You need to have pretty much everything in your CV. So please make sure of that. And then moving on, I'll take a comment from Gulrez and then we'll move on to questions. We have a big crowd, so we'll try to take as many questions as we can. Gulrez, do you want to add in anything now?
Thank you so much, Siddiq Bhai. This is Gulrez. I'm a HEMONC fellow at Medical College of Wisconsin, and I've been a part of APPNA YPC for quite a few years now, currently co-chair. What I totally agree with what the panel has said till now, and I believe like in this current day and age, if your CV does not justify what you are applying for, then it will be very difficult for you to match in that field. Um, just I was reviewing some of the questions. Another point that I want to bring up is don't expect an answer for anonymous questions. We will not be taking the anonymous questions from the chat, because if you can't identify yourself, then we just don't feel confident enough to reply to those. Unless it's a very pertinent question, then we'll take it. But if you're putting in question as anonymous, we will not be taking them from the chat. um, but some of the people, like some of the questions that are being asked is like, one thing one of the other panelists pointed out is read a template before you write your own personal statement. I usually recommend against that, because what happens is once you read a template, that template becomes your personal statement rather than it being your own personal statement. What I'd recommend people is to write a rough draft. Doesn't need to be of any essay form, doesn't need to be Shakespearean in English, doesn't need to be a very well formed a document. But what I want you to do is write down your story, things that you want to share with others. Make a rough draft before you read somebody else's personal statement, and then put in those points from the rough draft into that structure that you might have read as an example. Because what happens is once you read somebody else's personal statement, especially if somebody is already matched, you go like, oh, this is the magic sauce, I need to follow this. The personal statement is your canvas. You use that space to kind of like justify and tell the world who you are through your application. I would also recommend not to overlap too many things from your personal statement on your CV. Keep them two different documents. There is no reason for you to have too much information from your CV in your personal statement. Keep your personal statement short. Try to keep it close to 700 words. Some go up to 600 words, but I'm a little lenient with 700 words. And try to remain focused. Another question that I was reviewing in the Q&A was like, it's very difficult to remain focused, and you guys are not wrong. I can share my own story. As a medical student, I did my elective in surgery, and I was worried like my CV does not look internal medicine driven, and I'm applying for internal medicine driven, and my elective is in surgery. But as any rotation that you do as a med student is always justified. Just because you're a med student, you are not applying for residency at that point, and whatever opportunity comes your way, you will take it. And similar things also apply to USCE as well. At this point, it's very difficult to get into core internal medicine rotation. So what I would say is, try to be as relevant as possible. There are other sections of your CV as well that define good, how dedicated you are. Try to focus your research topics in a specific field. Try to not to publish just for the sake of publishing, that you're putting your name in psychiatry paper, you're putting your name in surgery paper, you're putting your name in anesthesia paper. Try to remain focused with your research experience. Try to remain focused with your USCE as much as you can, and then try to maybe focus with your volunteer experience as well, so that your CV tells others that you are a dedicated candidate for that very specific field.
I
Over
would
to you,
like to
Kutum.
add, Dr. Khurram, before we, I think I heard one of the panelists, I think you or someone mentioned about the scoring. So I recently had a chance of speaking with our internal medicine program director, because you were evaluating the, candidates in there. So there was a discussion coming about the score. So I don't know about most of the other programs, but in our program, he mentioned clearly that maybe a person scored 250 may not be a good team player but somebody with 220 is a great team player. So when you're giving an interview, or even if you're, describing your personal statement, and by an example or something, you can show that even if your scores are low, but you're a good team player, you're able to, dedicate yourself more. I think that stands out more just compared to your only having 250, 260 score. So that one thing is really important. Other thing, we recently, took a candidate for an exceptional pathway for the nephrology fellowship, and we were looking somebody who has a good clinical experience and with a good research to be considered as an exceptional candidate, and then they can go ahead and do residency and, go to that path. So a lot of candidates reached out, and they mentioned their clinical experiences. Some were really good, legit. It looked like someone had residency from Al Khan, some Ziauddin, JPMC, whatever. But some of the CVs, people mentioned their clinical experience, like from district hospitals and whatever. The person who's a program director, maybe not from Pakistan, but there is somebody like me sitting there, somebody from India sitting there. So they would go ahead and ask that faculty, hey, you know about Pakistan. Can you go and see which institute is this in the CV? Can you tell me how good is the clinical experience from that? So make sure when you're spending your time in Pakistan during those years when you're doing your experience there, make sure you go to a good institute, because somebody like me or from other country like India, Bangladesh, they're also sitting there. I know how district Tando Alayar Hospital is, your experience from there is, versus somebody who has a clinical experience from Al Khan, Ziauddin, or someone has a, clinic experience from there. That really matters a lot. So don't put it for the sake of filling the gap. You have to actually justify that you've done a really, really good clinical work while you were, with the old year graduate. So you need to really prove why you should be considered. So that's another point I wanted to mention.
Great points. Thank you, Lisa. Anyone now, if we would like to, we just go to the questions now. Please raise hand and ask questions. In the meantime, we'll also read it from the chat. And while we do that, I think if you have to had one experience from your home country, what Lisa also mentioned, I completely agree. Home country residency would be the best thing to do. So look into that if you have time, and it's also a good backup plan. I mean, only your chance of matching here is about 50%, right? It's an IMG, you have about 50% chance of matching. So you need to have, doing the observerships again over the next year versus doing a home country residency. I personally think, and I have seen it consistently, that the home country residency matter the most. So we'll take the question from first one. We have Muhammad Iqbal. So please go ahead and ask your question. Please unmute yourself and go ahead.
Hello.
Yes, go ahead. We can hear you.
Yeah, thank you so much for giving us this platform, all my respected panel. So I'm Dr. Iqbal from Qatar Hamad Hospital. I just want to ask if I'm an old graduate and I have done my residency in emergency medicine, ACGME accredited program. Now this year I'm going to apply in the match. So most of the programs, my application will be filtered out. This is what's the norm is, that above 5 years, most of the time the applications will be filtered out. So my question is, how will I reach the programs? And I'll tell them that I have done my residency. And after medical graduation, there is no gap. I remain in the clinical settings doing the experience and all the work. So
okay, I got your point. Noman, would you like to take this question, please?
So I had some interruption in the internet. So can you please repeat the question? I just logged back in.
Scores are lower, older graduate, but had completed home country residency. Question is, he'll be filtered out. What's the best way to reach out to the programs? And
Right. So the best way is that you either find out. So three ways, right? Either you do a clinical rotation in a hospital. So first thing is talking to your seniors, talking to other mentors, finding out the programs that take IMG, that have taken make a list of green here. If you can do observership, working with that faculty, so that's one way to make yourself visible there. See if you can do research with a faculty. And the third way is networking. You can always work with any mentor on research project, but go to the national meetings and conferences present there, and that's a way where you will interact with a lot of faculty members and program directors. So these are some of the ways how you can connect with them. So once they know you, they've seen you, then you just apply to the program and you send them an email, dear doctor, this and this, I've worked with you either on the clinical uh, rotation or research, or I met you over there, I presented a poster and you were at my poster and we had a discussion about this, I've applied to your program, would you kindly review my CV? Then they are more likely to get across that filter thing and review your CV. So these are some of the ways you can make yourself visible.
And emailing, I mean, also many times it helps. I mean, yes, they'll be getting thousands of emails, but you never know. I mean, we'll get hundreds of texts and emails, but sometime, we go through the emails, the text and everything, and you can be the lucky person whenever it's reviewed. You have in residency, home country residency. This is a big plus. If they review the CV, they will definitely consider. Going on to the next question. In the meantime, panelists, please feel free to text on the QA and reply to those, and once you reply to those and just dismiss that question. And then the Gulrez, please, if you can keep check on the QA also, and I'll take the questions from here. Omar Hayat, please go ahead and ask your question.
Hello, Assalamu alaikum. Am I audible?
Yes.
Perfect. Thank you so much, everyone, for gathering today and carrying out the session for us. So I just had a quick question. For a graduate of this year from class of 2024 who is applying for, who's actually dual applying for IM and another specialty, and they have done significant amount of USCEs, they have research, they have all the other extracurriculars, but they don't have like phenomenal or remarkable scores that are currently being demonstrated by a lot of students across the globe. What should be their strategy towards securing a good number of interviews and then ultimately a residency spot?
Actually, nowadays I feel like starting last year, the very high scores over 260 is not the best thing that you would like to have. You'll be investigated. And so this is what I've seen, at least from last year. People with scores of 270s did not get interviews. With people with scores of 220 with a good CV, what you mentioned, they did get a lot of, interviews. So that's what I think. I mean, if you have a good CV, you should be good to go. But Omar, if you would like to add in anything to that. Okay, Omar is on mute. Gulrez, do you want to add anything to that?
I'm sorry, my questions पढ़ा था. What was the question?
So not the great scores, but you got everything researched, a lot of years clinical experience, just graduated last year. Anything addition there? Like
One correction, Dr. Khurram, not last year, but this year, like class of 2024.
Oh, so you're a fresh graduate. I think that's in your favor. So, what I recommend is if there is any red flag on your CV application, whether it be low scores, whether it be all year of 2 year kind of like graduation years, quite a few years, you need to beef up the rest of the sections of your CV. So I was not a great candidate either. My scores were 230s, but in my time, people usually used to get like 250s, 260, 270s were not a normal thingy. So I wasn't that bad, but still my scores weren't the greatest to match. It was not a done deal. But then I beefed up the rest of the sections of my CV. I did research, I did volunteer work, I had extensive volunteer work, and that kind of like reflected in my CV. It was picked up by a lot of programs. Another thing that I did was people talk about all these connections. I frankly didn't even know anybody. I still don't have any relatives in US. So I don't know what they mean by connections, but I send out email of intent to all the programs that I applied to, and then I call them up as well. I try to follow up with them as well. Um, and I would not only just email the generic email that they provide on their website, I would also try to see if I can find the program director's email or the associate program director's email and try to send them an email and see if they will be able to read my CV. And I got in total, I think, 8 interviews. This was back in 2015. And out of the 8, I think 4 were organic and 4 were through either phone calls or emails, where I could clearly see that I called the program and the program extended an interview within the next day or two, or I sent an email and then I noticed there was an invitation as well without a response. So I think these things still work. It's getting a little bit more trickier because initially when we used to apply, the interviews were in person, so there were cancellations especially at the end of the year, so that would open up slots that the program would really like to fill and see and get the required quota to go fully matched in the match process. With virtual environment, things cancellations don't happen that often unless there is overlapping of interview days, which is pretty common because the math season starts in September for everybody. Most programs start review application through September into October. They start interviewing in November, December, January. So a lot of programs end up overlapping of their dates. But cancellations are less common now than before. Before, bad weather would cause cancellation for people. And if you're sitting in a city, you can just say like, "Hey, I'm here. If there is a cancellation, just let me know." So, but what I would say is forget what happened with your scores. Now you need to focus on things that you can improve. Forget you graduated 10 years ago. Focus on things that you can actually improve to make yourself a better candidate. I would say if there are multiple red flags, like if you failed and you're still want to try US, then I would say maybe look into a research position as a long-term thingy, beef up your application by working with people, networking with people, and then go from there.
Great. Yeah, I think I would also like to clear a misconception that we get very, very, very commonly is that, oh, you don't have any connections, that is it, you're done, and you just don't have a chance. I mean, this is absolutely false. Just think of common sense. I mean, for example, 700 Pakistanis matched this year. Do you actually believe that the majority of them had connections and that's the only reason they matched? Absolutely not, right? I mean, yes, do they help? 100%. They do help, but it doesn't mean that you will only match because you have connections, and don't come up with a sob story. We don't have any connections, so what are we going to do? So it doesn't work. Alvina, you would like to add something, right?
Yes, I just wanted to add on to that. So I think the signals is really important. So besides the fact you have to really highlight the other sections of your CV and work on that if you have low scores. But I think signal really helps for me. As Dr. Kurum said, the connections is not the most important. So all the interviews I got were just based on the program that I signaled and which programs I targeted based on my CV. So I think that's very helpful. You have to know how your CV fits that particular program. You don't really need a connection to get an interview. And if you carry a good communication skills, good personality, you can talk to the program and convince that they should take you. You should be good to go. You don't really need somebody, a program director or someone in there to have you. So it's just an excuse when candidates say, we need a connection. I think it's good to be in the US to work on your communication skills and work on other parts of your CV. But if you have low scores, it's totally fine. In fact, the high score is a bit of a red flag now. So people who think, they can just have a 280, 270 and can match with that, it doesn't work like that. We have to checklist all the boxes. And an average candidate, honestly, I think is the best candidate right now. So the community programs would like you, also academic programs would like you. You probably would end up getting most interviews than a candidate who is an outlier. So somebody who has a lot of research, so only academic program would ask you to interview. So for me, I think if you want maximum interview, somewhere being average is the way to go.
Good. All right, Faizan Malik, please unmute yourself and ask a question.
Yes, sir. Thank you so very much for giving me the opportunity. I wanted to ask because I went on my last year, so I did a lot of research in that time. I probably now have 30 publications, but also at the same point, I am rotating at the community programs. So, like, what should be the best way to go forward from here? Like, should I put less publication in my ERAS CV as I shouldn't get filtered out from the community programs? Or like, should I only target the university program? So how can I know that which program best suits to my profile? So either I have to make changes to profile or like I have to do something else. So I'll need your insights on this.
I think very interesting question. 30 plus publications, yes, definitely focus on big academic programs, but also think that big academic programs are all do have candidates like you. And what I think when I was mentoring throughout Alvina, I told her the same thing last year, that just rotate, have some rotations in community programs also, and get some letters from there and kind of put maybe personalized emails to those programs will help you a lot. But I'll let Noman answer this question. Noman, if you can please.
Yeah. So again, so you need to look at that holistic approach. You don't want to be skewed towards one thing where you just got a really good research profile. So I would say right now you shouldn't push harder on the research side. Just do a normal stuff. If you've already got 30 plus, if you do one or two paper a year, you'll be fine. PubMed index, just even one paper, just take it easy. Now you need to look at the other side. How is your clinical side of the CV? Have you done good clinical rotations? And when you're doing rotation, are you pushing hardest in those rotations? So your faculty member who's going to write your letter recommendation, would they talk about your professionalism? Would they talk about how hard did you worked on the rotation? Did you do any presentations there? Were you involved in patient care? Did you interview patients? How's the quality of your interview skills? Were you a team player or not? So these are now work on. Do clinical stuff and then don't be distracted in that. So what people do is they've got a lot of stuff. They start their rotation, clinical rotation, and they're like, okay, it's 8 to 5, and just being there as a fly on the wall. So you have to be proactive. Things that are noticed is if your attending is coming at 8, you got to be there at 7:45. You want to be there before you're attending. So that will be noticed by the staff, by the attending. If it's 5 o'clock, you leave, you stay a little bit later. And then because this is you're trying to now improve your CV, you have to give more than 100% now. So you try to push hard. And when you are there, you're not just a fly. You have appropriate, good clinical questions during rounds. You bring in something good. If you are stronger in research, why don't you suggest a project? Find out what your faculty is interested in. Hey, I saw you've done research in this area. I have read a lot about it. I have an interesting concept I want to share with you. So now you're killing two birds with one. You got a clinical experience. You're also doing a research that you're good at, but that the person you do research with will write a very good letter for you. That's going to help you. And then again, what we have already mentioned, then if you graduate or you're seeking service of attending presentations, Gulrez mentioned reaching out to the programs, letter of intent, calling the coordinators, all that.
Great. Thank you,
I think
Naman.
one thing here more, like you said, that you have 30 more publications. If you're pursuing for like a really academic career, fellowship and anything, so then you have to, mention that, or you're applying to academic program, it's great to have 30 publications in there. But like Dr. Ashraf said, that if you're applying for a clinical program, even if you have less clinical rotations compared to your publication, just mentioning a 2-line, if you have a clinical experience, for example, nephrology, you did a 2-week rotation or 1-month rotation, putting a 2-line after every rotation, just not putting that you did a observership for 2 months here. Write for 2 lines what you actually gained from here. For example, writing that you were working in critical care nephrology, you learned CRRTs, you saw dialysis, and you learned the EPIC system. That way, a clinician who's seen your CV and is interested in seeing your clinical aspect can see those 2 lines that you actually went for the clinical rotation and something that you got out of it. So something that you saw that's mentioned in 2 lines, you'll gain out of that rotation if you're focusing on a clinically oriented program. So that's one thing on that.
Great input. Thank you. On a
I
side,
also have a follow-up question on this. How many publications are actually publications and not just poster presentations? How many of them are curious publications? How many are where you are like the 15th person on the publication? So see what publications actually means. Like if you are not the first or the second author, then usually you are not being credited to that publication either. And if it's a poster that you presented with 10 different people, usually does not carry that much weightage either. There is a very strong trend in Pakistan right now where 15 people are working on 15 different projects and they all get 15 publications out of it. They actually get 30 out of it because 15 is poster and then 15 is the paper itself. Try to see if you can prioritize what actually was a publication rather than just putting in for the sake of publication. We do like research back home where you are like the 20th now meta-analysis world is going on right now where you are like 15th 20th author on the list. I really don't think that carries too much weightage for you. I would try to prioritize publications where you are first or the second or the last author, as somebody who has mentored people. So Khurram, I feel like we should just take the Q&A now. There
sure,
are 49 questions.
so there are 50 questions. So I'll just read the questions. Any of the panelists just, rapid fire round, just answer whoever would like to pick up. Experiences in ERAS CV shall be inclined towards what we did or what we learned and how it impacted us. Naman.
You're going to talk about all because now you have meaningful experience section as well and how it impacted. So list the experience, how it impacted, what you learned from it, mention if it's significant, mention it in your personal statement, mention it in your meaningful experiences and everywhere in the CV. Of course, you want to know what you learned from it and how it changed you as a person.
Okay, Gulrez, can you just type in for the longer question? It's gonna take longer for me to read, so I'll take the shorter ones to save time. Next one, I'll go with Mohammed Abdullah. Please give some advice to candidates who's giving step 2 in middle of August and how they should go in this match. I mean, honestly, I think in middle of the August, and if you don't really have time to do any rotations, I mean, all you'll probably, I mean, unless if you have electives and all that, yes, good, then you can still go ahead and you should apply. But middle of August, you're going to take step 2. You'll be certified hardly by the time of the application. If you don't have any US clinical experience, you'll probably be filtered out. It's going to be hard. So if money is not an issue, go ahead, try to apply. But if money is significant issue, then I would wait and make up your CV stronger.
The
Nidasha,
long question was actually about LOR, which LOR to use. I usually recommend, like, if you have the quality of the LOR matters, not who's writing it or what specialty it's coming from. Your priority should be try to focus if you can get core letters for like IM candidates for general surgery, like whichever field you're trying to apply, try to get core letters. But if you're not able to get a core letter, try to get a good quality personalized letter from any field and use it. So the question that was asked, the long question was, I have an emergency medicine rotation along with an IM clinic based rotation. Which LOR should I use? And the applicant is an IM applicant.
I think I would
So-
use the internal medicine one because that's more focused if you're applying for internal medicine, even if it's a clinic-based rotation.
Okay. All right, going on to next. USIMG 2 years out. I want to apply for a competitive specialty. I want to do research, and Dr. Ali's advice was pretty helpful. Is there any particular kind of research one should do? I feel lost without a PI in my field. Have reached out to US docs and parks, but nothing worked out. So Alvina, if you would like to pitch in into this, what can you?
Sure. I think the most important type of research that is helpful is clinical research. So if you don't have anything but you're rotating, maybe you can just write a case report and publish that. Anything you can find through, or also cross-sectional study, quality improvement projects. Those are very easy to come up with. You can come up with different questionnaires and kind of conduct a study on your own or have a friend or two involved and get it published. So those are easy things to do if you don't have a PI.
Okay, so now I'll take question from the audience. Hasiba Karimi, please go ahead.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, hello everyone. Thank you so much for your great insights. I have 2 questions that I will be going through quickly. First of all, it's about step 3. I was wondering for someone who is a fresh graduate. So I graduated from medical school in Turkey in November 2023. And currently, as I read from the platforms and the suggestions from my seniors, they all vouch for taking step 3 because it might be an additional thing for a plus. I mean, for my application. I'm not sure if like how important is the score of step 3 for someone who would like to go for a fellowship after internal medicine residency. So I'm someone who would like to do a fellowship if I get into IM later. Will it be like important for me to go for a higher step 3 score, and what is the cutoff for the high step 3 score? I believe they say it's 230, but I'm not sure about that. I would like to get your insights about this. This is my first question, and I would like to can I ask my second question? I just wait for you to answer the first one.
Yeah, go ahead, ask your second question,
Yeah,
please.
okay. The second question is, I have been doing some research with my PI, who is a neurosurgeon since second year of medical school. And the thing is that my PI had a neuro-oncology lab. in the institute that was affiliated with my university. So because I was interested in oncology and this was my only chance, I went to work with him, even though he's a neurosurgeon. But I also did some clinical research and stuff with him as well, besides some basic science research in lab. And he now knows me very well even from second year of medical school, and he can write me a strong letter. But I'm not sure if it's going to be a red flag for me to have a letter from someone who is a neurosurgeon. But my interest in oncology is something that is very obvious. But the letter and someone who have I worked it is a surgeon. Will it be okay for him to write the letter for me? And like, how can I make it obvious that I'm interested in internal medicine, that this was my only chance back then? And this PI knows me well, so I have a letter from him.
Okay,
Thank you
Hasiba,
so
so
much.
yeah, real quickly. So for the second question, your letter, again, get some letters from oncology. You can also definitely get a letter from this person and have them write down that you are interested in oncology. That is fine. But again, as Gulrez said, the letter has to talk about your qualities, and the best letter writer is the one that you trust. Like you said, this person will write a good letter. So I would definitely include that letter. You can include up to 4 letters. So have one from him, 2 from oncology people, 3 are enough. And if you have an extra one, then get that one too. The first question was, so for first you need to focus on the residency. Fellowship is after that. For residency, again, step 3 is not needed. If it's a good candidate, fresh graduate, no red flags, no issues, you don't need the step 3. But step 3 helps you with the visa, H1, and that's important if somebody's is settling down here. And so that's why we recommend, if you can take it and you feel like you will pass it, then you take that. But again, it's an exam designed to be taken in the first year of the residency. Will the score matter on the fellowship? I don't think so. It will matter a whole lot. I think it's the attempts is the issue. And then if you pass it, pass fail is the main thing. And I've heard, I think AMA just also released some notification that there's a group that's working on changing the step 3 to pass fail, because it puts a lot of stress on people for the scoring. So it's just probably going to be just like a step 1. So I'm not sure if score is going to matter a lot.
Agree. All right, next question we'll take from
Siddiq bhai, can you promote Ahmed Rehan as a panelist, please? He
Sure.
has raised his hand.
Achha, I wasn't sure if it's Ahmed Rehan. Okay. In the meantime, Ala Varayo, go ahead and ask your question. Unmute yourself and ask your question.
Thank you. Thanks, Dr. Khurram, for giving me an opportunity, and thanks for giving us replying and bearing us all the time. Sir, I am recently graduated from LUMS, and currently I am rotating in Houston Methodist. My question is that, like Dr. Noman suggest us that your CV should be focused on like a one program, but here I met with a lot of professors, a lot of doctors. They suggested us like you can apply in combined program, like I am psych, I am peds. So kindly, sir, clear it. So whether we go on like only one program, yeah, should we apply for like combined programs?
Okay, so here's what it is. How many programs do you think are in combined internal medicine and PH, combined internal medicine and psych? Very few as compared to how many programs are there for internal medicine, family medicine, pediatrics, or any kind of that specialty. So you decide again those when there are very few programs like that, the combined programs, there are only few programs. So you have to prove yourself very hard that you do fit into that combined program. You take your chances and you go from there. It's always obviously, like yeah, I think Alvina mentioned the very good point that average candidate is still the best, and I mean most common things are still going to be the most chances you'll get through the most common ones. So you decide what you think is best. In the meantime, again, panelists, please, if you can get a chance to type in the messages, Ahmed, go ahead and please pitch and give us.
Thank you, everyone.
Ahmed bhai, before you start, I do want you to talk about step 3 as well, because you have very strong views about it.
Sure. Yeah, thank you. So I'll quickly first answer the dual specialty. So I actually 7 years ago, I and some of my friends, we applied to med psych. So I stayed unmatched for the first time. So I had some medicine as well as psych experience. So I applied to med psych, which is very competitive because it has like just at that time 12, 13 program. Now there are 16, 17. So that actually helped me because I also applied to categorical medicine, categorical psych. Now I could actually explain during the psych interviews why I did medicine rotation because I also applied for med psych and vice versa. So you could always explain yourself, but lately the trend has been changing. Now what happens is that if, especially I can say for psych, if they do see a little bit of internal medicine CV, it's fine. But if the proportion is going more, it's above like 50, 60% of medicine, 40% of psych, then they don't actually like it because psych itself, like psych, pathology, they have become, frankly, even more competitive than I am. So they just don't bother, like even interviewing those people, despite of very high scores, and I'm talking about 250s and 60s. So it's a fine line, which you can try if you already have experience, but try to focus primarily on one specialty and then use the double boarded specialty as a backup. So because it can get tricky and some specialties don't like it. In regards to step 3, some of you know I have maybe some different opinions. And my opinion, it's not personally. If you ask me, I think that because AMGs cannot take it, Caribbeans cannot take it because of their timeline, no one should take it. But that is my wish, but that is not the reality. In the past 7 years, I have had pleasure of talking directly, indirectly to at least 20, 30 PDs of different specialties, Caucasian, Hispanic, Pakistani, Indian. More or less what I have gotten from them is that some feel very strongly about it. Like some would say, no, it's absolutely, I want to see it because in my programs, they won't get time to study and people fail. And we are a small program. If someone fails, it doesn't work like that. Someone would be opposite. They say, I don't care about it at all. But most of the time, what I've seen is that it's sometimes unfortunate they won't mention it. Like, of course, they won't mention it in their website, or if on forums they won't say that we want it, but they always want it. They even have, so there's always a scoring system when you are sending interview calls, and then there's a scoring system that you rank the people on. So rank order. What I have noticed, 80% of the time, step 3 is included in both. And I'm not saying, so scores may not matter, but having passed step 3 matters a lot. Number one. Number two, I also know internal medicine programs, I don't want to name, but they actually also add up the step 3 score. So their formula is pretty simple. They add step 1, 2, 3 score, divide it into 3, and just and send interview calls according to that. So what I would say is, again, for step 3, you need a visa, you need financial resources. So if you have those, what I would say that instead of doing more clinical rotations, I would take step 3. Instead of doing like 10, 15 publications, I would do step 3. But having said that, if you don't have any clinical rotations, then you should do clinical rotations because step 3 may not replace USCE. But if you have some of those, doing additional may not be as helpful as taking step 3. And that's my opinion. Again, many people would disagree. Some would agree, but that's what my observation, not like more of an opinion, but observation I have gone through myself when I was applying and what I have noticed in the past 7 years. Thank you.
Yeah, for step 3, I have a very strong opinion also that I have definitely seen that if we have a step 3 pass at the time of application, that definitely affects your number of interviews that you get. And if I were you to ask, like getting a good score on step 3 after application submission versus just pass, I would prefer having a step 3 pass at the time of application. So thank you. We'll take another question.
Big Bhai, it looks like one common question in the question section is some people who went unmatched last year, what are they supposed to do this year? A few points that I want to point kind of like in this realm is like, first you need to retrospectively look into the fact what happened. Why did you go unmatched? Was it your CV? Was it your personal statement? Was it your interview skills? If you had 8 to 10 interviews and you still went unmatched, then likely it was your interview skills that let you down rather than your CV itself. Because if it was your CV, you would not have gotten 8 to 10 interviews unless you have that many connections that people are inviting you. So that is another case. But I would say look into your application and go through that process and see what happened that you can change and come up as a better candidate this year. Um, and usually, what I have noticed is people who are second time applicants, unless they have major red flags, most of them actually do well in their second match as well. Most of them end up matching, unless they have like really low scores or a year of graduation that is 10 years or 15 years, and so on and so forth.
Okay, great. Thanks. So taking questions from Arisha Masood. Go ahead and please ask a question.
Hello, Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Thank you very much for organizing this webinar, doctors. I'm really grateful. I have a question, Dr. Khurram. Is it advisable to stay in America after submitting our ERAS and as the med cycle begins, or is it better to return to Pakistan? I mean, what difference does it make? Thank you so much.
The difference it makes is when obviously the longer you are in US, the longer you have chance to build your connections. The connections that people think your family, friends, or something. To me, those are less important connections as compared to the connections that you build through your professional experiences. Those are the connections that really matters a lot. That's number one, so that you'll have more chances of building connections. Number two is if you get interviews and you're talking about that you're currently in US and you're now working into this particular setting, into this hospital, into this program, so that definitely helps in another bit. And thirdly, if you get an experience in, for example, in a residency program, then definitely they'll consider you for an interview also. So that's how these are important things. Now, if again, I'm a big advocate of home country residency. So unless if you have home country residency, go back to your country and do that. But if you don't have that and you have a chance to stay in this country, I would say stay. But obviously, just have to make sure that you do not overuse your visa. And because that's becoming very important these days, I have been hearing like literally every day that there have been questions at the port of entry, like how long did you stay? Why did you come back again soon? So just make sure that you do not overstay on the visas also. Ahmed, go ahead.
I would reiterate what Dr. Puram said about the visa, because in the DS 160, when you fill it, and let's say that you said you will stay for 2 months, I would strongly recommend and request you all to consider staying for 2 months. Sometimes when you are at the port of entry, you can tell them that maybe I would stay for 4 months, and they would give you entry, it's fine. But over the past several years, visa issues have been increasing. So just per se, for the sake of staying in US after applying, I think that if you have not mentioned that in your DS, it's a little bit risky, because at the end of the day, you get residency, and if they pick that one thing, which sometimes they would, so that's a little bit risky. So just wanted to let you all know. Thank you.
Aisha Nasir, please go ahead and ask your question.
Hello, sir. Assalamu alaikum to all of you, sir. Thank you so much for answering our questions and giving us this opportunity. Sir, am I audible to you?
Yes.
So, sir, my question is, I'm a recent graduate of 2023, and I have a good research portfolio with me as well. I did a lot of research as undergraduate and currently have good number of publications. And I'm recently done with my house job as well. And in addition to this, I did like extensive USCE and have letters as well. But sir, only thing that I'm lacking right now, specifically at this time, is step 2. And yes, looking onto the recent things like investigation and all, I'm not I would say going for a very high score like 260s or 265s, but my goal right now is only 245 or 250, not much than that. But like looking at my colleagues and all, the thing is, if we are getting an average score, for example, 230s and 240s, I'm really scared regarding this thing. Like I want to give like full time to my step 2, but looking at
Okay, I think you got muted there, but we got your point. Naman, do you like to answer this?
Yeah, so I think your CV otherwise is good, but if you are not certified, you can't start and you can't apply. So step 2 has to be your primary focus. I wouldn't stress too much about very high scores because we, as Dr. Khurram had mentioned, we have had issues in the with the high scores. So yeah, aim around 240. That's going to be fine. Have confidence in you. But I think all your focus should be to take that step to get ECFMG certified so you can apply for this cycle. Because if you delay it, all the work that you have done, because your CV, what you have said, it looks excellent. You've got research, you're doing a house job, fresh graduate 2023. I mean, what else you need? You're good to go. Get ECFMG certified, aim around 235, 240, you're fine. Just apply.
I agree. Next, I'll take question from Khatija Khan. Go ahead.
Hi, everyone. My name is Dr. Khadija Shahjahan. I have one question. That I am in US for 5 months and I will be going back like this month or yeah. So I got an opportunity for research for 5 months commitment. So I asked them to that I may come in November, but some of the people said that your total stay in US will be like 8 months total in a year, but I have a multiple entry visa. So is it advisable to come for research opportunity in a residency program, or you suggest that I should not opt for it because I have a residency program US clinical externship experience and my year of graduation is 2023.
I would
So
definitely recommend that you come. I mean, you can come back in 2 months. That's absolutely fine. People come all the time. And then if you are going now, you're coming back in November, you'll be totally fine. Definitely do not miss that opportunity. Okay. Moving on to the next question, Hamna Hassan. Omar, I can see your hand, but you have asked one question, so we'll give chance first to everyone else, and then if we have time, we'll take another question. So Hamna Hassan, please go ahead and ask your question.
Hello, Assalamualaikum. Thank you guys so much for answering all of our questions. I just wanted to ask you that I'm a 2022 graduate. I've done my step 1, step 2, currently preparing for step 3. I have 3 USCs, but I did them in my university year, so 2021, and they're outpatient because that's when COVID hit, so they were not really letting inpatient rotations. Currently, I'm in Canada and I'm working as a medical assistant with a family doctor who did his residency in the US. So I think he can also write me an LOR. I do have 3 USCs, but I want to know if, because they're older, they're from 2021, should I, in the next 2 months that I have, rather go to the US and do more USCs or work as a medical assistant at the family practice that I'm working at currently?
I would recommend going to US 100% rather than working in Canada. Recent experience also counts. You did back in the medical school, so that is good. That was electives, but I would strongly recommend. Any other panelists have something else to add? No? Okay, we'll move on to the next question from Mariam Beg. Please go ahead and ask a question. Mariam, please unmute yourself and ask your question. Yeah.
Assalamualaikum. Thank you. Yes, so I wanted to ask, I am also a fresh graduate of 2023. I've given my STEP exams, and I have 1 US clinical experience, or one that I will be doing this month, or in July. I wanted to ask, what would be the most important thing for me to focus on after doing 1 US clinical experience? Is it better to focus on step 3, or try for more clinical experiences? And also I had one more question, which was, what is the best thing to do after applying for Match if I can stay in the US?
Aliza, would you like to answer?
Yes, sure. So I think if you've done 1 rotation and you have to make a choice what to be done, step 3 or clinical rotation, then I would say step 3 is better. And like Dr. Ahmed mentioned that earlier, that some programs do not mention it, but they prefer candidates having step 3 because there's always risk that you are taking a candidate and what if they fail and not able to do it. And the time, like your second question, that what you should be doing if you have visa, if you have the resources to stay here, then I'd say, reaching out to, if you are in one hospital, like for example, if you're doing a rotation now, try to make contacts with the residents, with the attendings of the other department or other division. For example, if you're rotating in cardiology and you see internal medicine residents and attendings, try to make contact. That way also you'll be able to get some more observerships in the same program. So I think that'd be a better way. So you don't have to travel from one city to other city. You can do that. And a lot of people in our program also, they come for 2 weeks of nephrology and then they meet the internal medicine attendings or cardiology attendings and they end up rotating in the same hospital. I think that's something that I would suggest.
Okay. All right. Next, last question is from Muhammad Ali. Please go ahead and ask your question. Ali, go ahead and ask your question. We can't hear you.
Good morning, Dr. Sadiq. Can you hear me? Am I
Yes.
audible to you?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you so much. So I'm a graduate of 2017 and I have a home country residency of 5 years to go with my completed steps, including my USMLE step 3. And I went unmatched last year, and this cycle I'll be applying again. But now I have a fellowship in hand, that is geriatrics. So I was wondering if I'll be using my LORs from my Pakistan's residency as well, or should I be using my geriatrics LOR from the US only?
Definitely use your geriatrics fellowship. So I'll just give you a very few brief examples. Many of my mentees who got into fellowship programs, like especially geriatrics, nephrology, and ID, they had significant increase in their interviews here. So this year, I'm hopeful, inshallah, you'll be getting a lot of interviews. I think the best would be, because you completed home country residency also, so one home country residency LOR, one geriatric fellowship LOR, and one maybe other rotations that you might add. Noman, as a program director, would you?
Yes, so I would say just one from Pakistan, from someone who knows you very well, can write a good LOR. Just take 2 from 2 faculties from your geriatric fellowship. They'll be US based, and then you just talk about that what you did in the fellowship. I think, as Dr. Khurram said, your interviews will probably be more. What they want to see is how were you were that geriatric fellowship program involved in sort of study the quality improvement, some sort of project, and how good your LORs are. And if that was good, then you should be able to get some good interviews now.
Great. Good luck. Last question from Brooke. Go ahead. Unmute yourself and ask your question. Can't hear you, sorry. Let's try one more time.
Maybe he can type up in.
We can't hear you, sorry. I think you might have bad connection. So you can type in and we'll try to answer it. We'll go to the last questions from the audience. Is Umar Hayat again. Go ahead and ask your question.
Hello, am I audible?
Yes.
All right, so I had a follow-up question previously that I wanted to continue on, and that is a lot of students these days, including myself, who's just a fresh graduate, we experimented with a lot of research studies in our earlier years in medical school, such as second year and third year, and some of those publications have not been published in a very high impact journal, or let's just say we have published them in journals that are local to Pakistan. So I just wanted to ask that if we are applying this year, will those publications be credited for our efforts, and should we be mentioning them on our ERAS CV?
I think I can take that question for you. As you mentioned that, if they've not been published in high impact journal, as long as your name is as a first or second author or the senior author on that paper, and you're able to speak about that research on your interview, because a lot of times people mention the research, and if somebody is sitting there and asks you about that research and you have no idea what that research was about, that's a big, big red flag. For example, if there's a meta-analysis and someone picks up that topic and you don't know what study was done, what was the statistical, rationale of that, then consider that as a red flag. So if you have done a core research, even 5 years ago, you're first, second author, you have the good knowledge about that research, do mention it.
So let me add something here, Dr. Khurram, if I may. I think Alvina touched upon the QI project. So you guys need to look at research again. So from psychiatry, I know the requirement is for residency training is to give our residents exposure to scholarly projects. And scholarly project doesn't mean a cutting edge research or like meta-analysis and all that. It's just simply a quality improvement projects you can do cross-sectional, very easy. And you need to know the process, how to for the IRB, how to design a poster, how to publish, very basic stuff. So when I was a resident, and I think you can even do it as a student, what I did was there was a resident journal of the APA. And I simply, once I interviewed one of my professors and talked about the field of dementia and what was coming out and advancement that got published. The other thing was I just reflected on my experience in Pakistan and here dealing with the patients struggling with schizophrenia. And what I saw was different in the healthcare system here versus Pakistan. Both got published. First author wasn't a big deal. I could easily just sit down and write about it. Then now with residents, what we do is just have simple question. Like you guys remember when back in the days, they came up with putting these hand sanitizers in the hospital. So the simple QI project was how many people are utilizing the hand sanitizer, whether it affected the transfer infection rate on the hospital ward or not. You can find anything like that and simply do it or come up with a survey. Just ask about like in COVID, people post-COVID ask about questions of long-term COVID sequelae. So just design a survey, send it out to people who had COVID and ask them what kind of symptoms you're having and how long it's been that you've been having, how impairing it is for you, and just publish that. And if the journal doesn't take it, some of the conferences will let you do the presentation. So you don't have to push very hard on the research side, just a little bit of knowledge and get involved with simple stuff. And that should be good.
Great. We'll try from Brooke again. Go ahead, Brooke.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Good morning, everybody. So I had one question. I am a recent graduate. I graduated on February 2024 this year. And so I plan to match on 2026, so next year, so on September. So my actually question is, so I plan to finish my step 2 exam on February 2025. So should I do US clinical experience plus the step 3, or should I just focus on US clinical experience after I do my step 2? Thank you.
So I think this is what we've discussed many times in this webinar also. There's not one thing that you will be having in your CV, multiple things. Obviously, US clinical experience is kind of required by most programs. So you'll be filtered out. Step 3 is not required, but definitely, like most of us mentioned, it will help you. So these days, you just have to kind of multitask and do everything, whatever you can. The best way would be to get everything done. All right, I think we went.
Deepak, there is one question from a candidate from Thailand, and he's an old graduate, average scores, and he's asked old graduate green card average scores, and he's asking what are the chances of matching in pathology and what should he do to match in pathology. He has home country experience, but I don't know if it's in relevant field though. And what else did he write?
So I'll tell you about briefly about pathology and any of other applicants in pathology, and I think most for pretty much all specialties. Pathology is one of those specialties where we do not focus much on scores, but very extraordinary, very heavy on CV. So if you graduated 10 years back, and I'm like just last year, my mentee, she was 2005 graduate, she matched. Two of 2010 graduate, they matched, but they had extensive pathology experience, meaning that you should have, I mean, I don't know what extensive is, it's subjective, but I mean, all I should be seeing in your CV is pathology only. Now, if you show in your CV that, you know, you have like done all these clinical work for like last 7 years, and now you came to US, and now you found, you know, lost love of pathology, and then you just 3 rotations. People don't understand that 3 rotations or 3 LOR, that's the basic minimum, bare minimum, and you will not be getting interviews on just doing the minimum as the competition is. you do have a chance, especially people with green card who do not require visa. There's only 142 programs. You should apply to all programs, excluding Ivy League programs. Try to build your CV consistently in pathology only. And then definitely step 3 in pathology is a big help. So if you have home country experience for past couple of years, at least some experience, then a continuous experience. You can even, for example, this year you don't match into pathology, next year you can apply again, but just make sure to have only one thing on your CV, which is pathology or psych or FM or whatever you have. But you do have a very good chance only if you have a very persistent CV in pathology. So we'll just take, I guess, 2 last questions and then we will end there. Abdul Hasib, please go ahead and ask your
Siddiq
question.
bhai, it's 12:30.
I guess just now that we are answered 100% of questions, so let's just keep it to that. The last question will be from Sabawan. Abdul Hasib, be very brief and quick.
Okay, so hello everyone. Can you hear me all?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's my question. I'm an old grad. I am 2014 grad. I have recently done my step 1 and 2, and I'm in the US right now. And I have internal medicine residency at home country for 2 years. So unfortunately, I got the entry for 2 months. So I will be doing 3 rotations. I have the invitation letter for them. So what should I do now? So I'm currently preparing for step 3 as well. I have to go back in August anyway, so back to home country. So I don't know what should I do now. How can I proceed further from here?
So take prepare for your step 3, do that, apply for the math cycle. But also you said you have 2 years of training from home country. Try to finish your primary training, and if you can take the exam over there and apply through the fellowship pathway as well as an alternative for you.
All right, last question from Sabawan. Please go ahead and ask your question.
Hello, Assalamualaikum everyone. Thank you for this amazing session. I'm a graduate of 2022 and I'm ECFMG certified. I got ECFMG certified in April this year. Initially, I had 2 rotations planned, one with APPNA YPC and the other with Oklahoma Heart Hospital, but unfortunately my visa got refused. And I also had a plan to take step 3, but now I can't. I have applied for visa again, but I'm not sure if it will get through. Now, my question is that I have also applied for home country residency here in Pakistan, and I'm hopeful that I'll get it, and it will start about like in next month. Now that I have applied for visa again, and if I get it, I won't be able to get long leaves for USCE like observerships and step 3. So should I go for match this cycle, or should I do home country residency and then apply next year? That is my question. Thank you.
Ahmed, would you like to answer the question? Noman?
Sure. Yeah, sure. So what I would recommend, it's a very good question, that again, if you get a visa, you could definitely come, try to take step 3 and maybe do 1 rotation. Otherwise, the second best thing, as Dr. Ashraf also mentioned, the home country residency training is very, very beneficial. Most of the time, the PDs actually look forward to it, because CPSP is in a way, it's a reputable institution, because it has direct like association with Irish Medical Council as well. So what I would recommend, that residency would be a very good experience. And meanwhile, while in Pakistan, if you can get some tele rotation, that would also be not a bad opportunity. I have seen people matching in all fields, including psychiatry, from home country experience. And this last recommendation would be in Pakistan. I can talk about Lahore. There are more than 25 to 30 US trained physicians in internal medicine and allied specialties. I would recommend that if you maybe work with them a little bit, they can actually write you a letter that would be beneficial for you, because of course they have been trained in US. Thank you.
So that's about it, guys. I guess we went above and beyond because we just had like a big crowd today. We had over 200 applications. So usually we go through the panelists towards the end, but I guess it's just we were way beyond. So we'll just summarize here. First of all, I would like to thank all the panelists for taking their time on this weekend and weighing above and beyond and do whatever they could to help you guys out. Thank you all of the attendees. So the bottom line here, I guess most of panelists are on the same page. There is no one single factor in your CV that will change everything. It used to be the scores only, but those days are gone, like everyone said. And especially, the big scores, 270s and 280s, you just have to justify. So the best would be kind of those 240s, 250s scores is pretty good score. Home country residency experience would be the best experience if you can get it. US clinical experience, electives would be obviously the actual US clinical experience. And then once you graduate, observerships, get as many observerships that people ask me all the time, and all of us all the time, that, we just had a clinic rotation and we're not taking it. So just common sense questions again. You do not have any opportunity, so what would you do? Sit home? No, obviously you just take whatever opportunity you get working in US every single day. You will eventually build connections. If you're not able to build connection through that clinic, from that clinic, I have seen people ending up in bigger hospitals in residency programs, because you prove yourself. Eventually someone will know someone, and you prove yourself is strong enough. People will like to recommend you. So, those are the contexts that you should be working on. Moving on to research, again, there's no magic number of publication. There's no magic number of rotations that you should have. But obviously, if you have 7 observerships this year, you did match. Next year, you're going to do the same rotations. Would that help? Yes, a little bit, because this just shows a continuous, but kind of switch over, do something else. Try to get into postdoc, try to get into some additional, courses, master's degree sometimes helps, home country residency helps. So whatever you think that is lacking from last year, you build on that. If you were not too good, you got 20 interviews, you got 2 interviews. Someone who matched with 20, who did not match with 22 interviews versus someone who matched with 1 interview, what was the difference? I mean, obviously communication, the interview skills. So that is something that you have to focus on. Now, these days, obviously, when people ask, like, what should we pick, step 3 versus, clinical rotations, there's, again, you have to multitask. Again, you just cannot do one thing at a time anymore. You have to push yourself really hard, and you have got to do everything that you can. So just sitting there for exams is not enough anymore. So that's what people are doing. You got to juggle up, you got to hustle up, and you got to do everything that you can. Push yourself to the extreme. This is going to test you. This is going to test you. This whole journey will test you. And then this is going to obviously show into your interview skills also, like how strong you are. You're telling me in the interview that, oh, you take stress very, positively and this and that, while I can tell you in the interviews that you're literally sweating something. This doesn't fit. So do not fake something that you just can't fake. The interview skills are very important. So you just push yourself to what it is. When people tell you all the time that, be yourself, it actually matters, right? I mean, when you are just telling about yourself, what you actually are, I can tell, everyone can tell. I mean, you can tell if I'm lying or not, right? I mean, most of the times you can tell. So you cannot fake everything. So just be yourself in the interviews. We are trying our best through the YPC to help as many as we can. We are doing all these webinars pretty much every month, some topic that will help you towards the residency. And the only way we are doing it through the Appna YPC Facebook page. And now we have started the our Twitter handle, or X handle. So we post updates on that also. So just follow those things. You can ask questions on Appna Facebook group also. We'll try to answer. There's like 20,000 people in there, so they'll answer most of your questions. We are trying our best to help you with the rotations also, but just be patient with us, and then we are trying our best. So I wish you all the very best. You got to this point, believe in yourself, push yourself, you will get through. If not this year, eventually next year or the years to follow. Just stay persistent, be positive, and trust yourself and trust the system. I wish you the very best. Again, thank you very much, everyone. We'll see you in the next webinar. Thank you. Allah Hafiz.